I want to touch on this briefly, like kind of succinctly, because I feel like it's a, I wouldn't say it's like a retreading, but this is a theme we're going to be seeing a lot for a while, like over the next few years, maybe for like a lot of years. So, as we all know, Joe Rogan is about as independent media as Fox News. He is a conservative partisan who brings monsters and billionaires on his show to launder their reputation and bring them down to earth. Recently, Mark Zuckerberg, a techno-fetishistic narcissist freak, went on Joe Rogan, and basically the entire interview was just him like kowtowing to MAGA, kissing the boot, bending the knee, you know, all like the entirety of the right wing, which has spent like a decade complaining about Mark Zuckerberg because he moderated Facebook and Instagram more or less neutrally. He banned COVID misinfo. He acquiesced to ban requests from the Trump administration as well. They hated Zuckerberg for this. Now they're going to praise him because, of course, most conservatives aren't smart enough to understand this, but people like Zuckerberg are completely amorphous. Their positions aren't real, or at the very least, they're irrelevant. They will do or say literally anything that allows them to best grow. They're like cancers. They metastasize. He said something in the interview, which, again, like the whole interview was just an attempt to launder his reputation and bring him into MAGA. You know, you can't have this massive shift in Meta, like, for example, how they've changed their terms of service. So they've explicitly allowed the use of slurs and attacks against trans and gay people. You can't have that without like bringing Zuckerberg in as an anti-woke warrior. So we have washed away the sins of him being a disingenuous, you know, like liberal do nothing for a decade. Now he's anti-woke. So just listen to the bit.
That and I think it's another to basically say that masculinity is bad. And I just think we kind of swung culturally to that part of the kind of the spectrum where, you know, it's all like, okay, masculinity is toxic. We have to like get rid of it completely. It's like, no, like it's both of these things are good, right? It's like you want like feminine energy, you want masculine energy. Like I think that's like you're going to have parts of society that have more of one or the other. I think that's all good.
Take? Yes, but keep in mind, it's not a take. Because he doesn't believe it. He's just saying things. It's 2014 again, here we go again. But it's not, though, because in 2014, a person as powerful as Zuckerberg would not have said this. This would not have been said. This would have been said by YouTubers. Now it's being said by the most powerful men on earth. It is a superficial and facile adoption of cultural signifiers to bring him in line with the current administration. I do wonder if Trump is continuing to personally threaten Zuckerberg with imprisonment. It is genuinely insane that this is happening after Trump not only threatened to imprison Zuckerberg for the crime of being woke or whatever, but after Trump was explicitly asked, do you think that Meta is shifting its terms of service in response to your threats? And Trump said, yeah, probably. No attempt to hide it, no artifice, no subtlety, no strategy even. It really is a testament to how successful they've been in cultivating a voter base of retards. Genuinely, like, not capable of thought. In the way, like normally in order to get people as stupid as a Trump supporter, you would need to have them be militantly religious. You would need them to adopt irrationality as a matter of faith, like doctrinal faith. Like it couldn't, not just in the abstract faith, like for an idea. You would need it to be like evangelicism or something. But there are agnostic or functionally agnostic people, millions of them, who are buying this. Oh, I think Zuckerberg is waking up. I think he's gone anti-woke. Immediately after Trump threatened to put him in prison for life, and Trump admitted that he was probably moved by threats.
But I do think the corporate culture sort of had swung towards being this somewhat more neutered thing.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's to dissect all of these lies bit by bit would be an absolute waste of time because A, they're obvious lies. They're not like, I'm not doing you a service. You could watch it and come to the same basic conclusions that I would deliver. It's like really, really straightforward. But also who's being convinced by this? You know, in order to be bought in by this, the level of derangement you have to be on has to go beyond the point where you would care whether or not what Zuckerberg is saying is accurate, which is one of the reasons why, as time goes forward, I don't think we're going to be covering much dishonesty from the right. Who has the time? I think the line here has to be, absolutely has to be, like, where's my $2 eggs? You know what I mean? Wow, excellent anti-woke point. Wow, Trump, excellent meme about making Canada the 51st state. Can't help but notice that the housing crisis hasn't improved. One mote. That's all you're going to get. And it's a borderline paleo-Marxist return to the underlying point here, which is, I am not a class reductionist. I don't believe that social issues like gay rights, trans rights, whatever, you know, women's rights, I don't think these are less important than class issues. I do fundamentally believe they are built on top of class issues. That class, the basic allocation of resources, the relationship you have to production, I think that's like the foundation upon which a lot of these social problems emerge. That doesn't mean you can fix them by getting rid of social or like economic inequality. It just means that it's like a root force. And I think that, and we have to accept this, guys, and I'm really sorry. On the social issue, we just have to accept that our enemies are okay with being evil and objectively wrong. Like, the default position now from them is not just being wrong, it is an active and willful acceptance that it's okay to be evil for no purpose and objectively wrong. They are fine with believing something that all evidence pushes against. They are fine with hurting people for reasons that, like, it doesn't even benefit them. Like, they're not making an assessment of, oh, it's like better for this group than it is for this group. They just want to hurt people. This is not all Trump supporters. I would actually say it's probably a small minority of them, but their attitudes and tendencies spread out far enough that even people who don't actively think those ways act as though they do. Does that make sense? There are lots of people who think they're doing good, who don't want to believe they're doing harm, but like, we have to accept what this is, you know? So you have to get at the underlying. No matter how many arguments they make that it's based in red pill to treat trans people horribly or something like that, there is one argument, there's one subject that no argument from the right will work on, and it's no matter what they say, no matter how many epic anti-gay wojacks they construct, they're not going to make those eggs any cheaper. That's it. It really is. No matter what, the whole point of this exercise is capital accumulation at the top. All this social inequality is just a justifying mechanism for the extraction of wealth up into the hands of now like 5 people. So no matter what, no matter how much social inequality they create, they can't undo that extraction of wealth because all of it is being done in the service of that extraction. So we just have to keep pointing at that. And that doesn't mean, hello, Pigeon, that doesn't mean giving up on the social cause. That doesn't mean like abandoning trans gay rights advocacy. It doesn't mean no longer pointing out when people are wrong. It doesn't mean any of that, you know? It just means you have to understand that at the end of the day, like, Trump supporters have been sold some really stupid arguments, but it's been sold to them on the belief that past all of it, they will get something for it. And that's just not true. And they have to be reminded of it. And it is in the humiliation that they might feel or getting flustered, like, well, why haven't these gains procured yet? That's how they get pulled over. That's the best you're going to do. But there's no denying the fact that we're going to be on the back foot for a while. We can be afforded some spite. We're the only group of people who actually want to improve people's lives. Liberals don't. At least they're very bad at it. Conservatives certainly don't. So basically now we get to be the ones complaining about gas and egg prices. The inflation is a problem. Just don't stop complaining about it now that Trump's going to be in charge. God, he looks like such a freak. Meta's policy overhaul included an order to remove tampons from men's restrooms. Me, when I don't want to go to prison and in fact want to keep being one of the wealthiest men alive, so I desperately do anything and everything that appeases the conservative culture warriors. All of it Any of it. It doesn't matter. Is it good, bad, whatever? Everything all at once. But it's totally authentic. It's not because I've been threatened with arrest from the incoming president. It has nothing to do with this. I suddenly decided to do all of these things all at once at the last second, right after being threatened with life in prison. It was just a coincidence. I believe all of it. Let me go on Joe Rogan to explain how I believe all of it. Pathetic. Could Trump actually put him in prison, though? That really depends on how far down the road we go in this country. Probably not, but he can make life a lot harder for Zuckerberg, for sure. Like, he could definitely, bury Meta under federal inquiry, DOJ investigations, that kind of stuff. Maybe he wouldn't go to prison. He would certainly could make his life worse, you know. He could stick the DOJ in him and find some tiny crime and go hard on him after that. I do think it's funny that of the billionaires that Joe Rogan has had on his program recently, basically all of them have trashed. What was it? The Consumer Bureau? The Consumer... Oh, I'm blanking on the name. They all talked about it. Zuckerberg talked about it too. Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. Yeah. Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. Yeah, sorry, I was blanking on the full acronym. They all bitched about it. Very funny. Meanwhile, in other news, want to learn some cool stuff about Meta? That is to say, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook. When last we covered Meta, we learned that in their new terms of... Following Mark Zuckerberg kowtowing completely to the right, the new Meta terms of service carved out specific permissions for calling queer people mentally ill, gay and trans people. Can't call people mentally ill as an insult. That's a violation of TOS. Unless it's because they're gay or trans, then it's allowed. Very specific carving out. Very eliminationist, very genocidal. And we have a leak from the internal rules. Thank you, The Intercept. Leaked Meta rules. Users are free to post, quote, Mexican immigrants are trash, or trans people are immoral. Under Meta's relaxed hate speech rules, users can now post, I'm a proud racist, or black people are more violent than whites. It's a brave new world. Can I say cracker? No. They already could do that? That is true. But this is an official codification of that reality, you know? Like I said yesterday, it's not that people weren't already posting hate speech in these platforms, it's that now the platforms are giving them the official thumbs up, which is going to embolden them. We're just going to go through this. Meta is now granting its users new freedom to post a wide array of derogatory remarks about races, nationalities, ethnic groups, sexual orientations, and gender identities. Training material obtained by The Intercept reveal. Examples of newly permissible speech on Facebook and Instagram highlighted in the training materials include... So to be clear, these are examples specifically written out in the training material. I don't even think I can read these. Immigrants are grubby. I don't want to read this. Like, it's YouTube TOS is a different ballpark. No need to? Well, there are, I don't know, blind people watching. You mean listening? Yeah, listening. What even violates Meta TOS at this point? Saying cracker, presumably. Remember back when the discourse from the right was the right is not even, like, the right is less racist than the left? And now, like, explicitly in order to cater to the right, they're literally just making racism permissible? Like, it's just remarkable how, because I was saying this from the beginning about how, like, the value of debate always has to be weighed against the fact that every single right-wing pundit and politician is lying all the time, and they know it. They're aware of the fact. None of them are being honest. They all act in bad faith all the time with no exceptions. And one of the biggest examples of that was all of them lying through their teeth about pretending that, like, you know, a neutral policing of bigotry, hate speech, racism on social media would not prejudice against conservatives. And now here we see, like, that discourse has advanced where it's just very openly, yeah, in order to be more fair to conservatives, we're allowing racism. The changes are part of a broader policy shift that includes the suspension of the company's fact-checking program. The goal, Meta said Tuesday, is to, quote, allow more speech by lifting restrictions. Meta's newly appointed global policy chief, Joel Kaplan, described the effort in a statement as a means to fix, quote, complex systems to manage content on our platforms, which are increasingly complicated for us to enforce. While Kaplan and Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, I've heard of this guy, have couched the changes as a way to allow users to engage more freely in ideological dissent and political debate, the previously unreported policy materials reviewed by The Intercept illustrate the extent to which purely insulting and dehumanizing rhetoric is now accepted. Yeah, it's like they say it's about free speech and debate. There has never been less debate on social media. Have you noticed that? It's just echo chambers and hatred now. Like, The right doesn't debate their positions. They just call you the N-word. There's no like discourse or anything. If you're a advocate for right-wing policy positions, the only way you do that is by expressing hate towards the people you don't like. There's no, it's just in-group, out-group distinctions. There's no like argument. There are zero odds that advertisers pull from Meta the way they did Twitter. Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. They only pulled from Twitter because the advertisers were operating under the mistaken assumption that these things were unacceptable. But now the whole internet is shifting to that point. Every social media platform will become Twitter or worse. The document provides those working on meta user content with an overview of the hate speech policy changes, walking them through how to apply the new rules. How long until Google goes this way? Few months or few years, maybe. The most significant changes are accompanied by a selection of relevant examples, hypothetical posts marked either allow or remove. When asked about the new policy changes, Meta spokesperson Corey Chambliss referred The Intercept to remarks from Kaplan's blog post announcing the shift. We're getting rid of a number of restrictions on topics like immigration, gender identity, and gender that are the subject of frequent political discourse and debate. It's not right that things can be said on TV or the floor of Congress, but not on our platforms. Kate Klonick, a content moderation policy expert who spoke to The Intercept, contests Meta's new framing that the new rules are less politicized, given the latitude they provide to attack conservative boogeymen. Drawing lines around content moderation was always a political enterprise, said Klonick, an associate professor of law at St. John's University and scholar of content moderation policy. To pretend these new rules are any more neutral than the old ones is a farce and a lie. Yeah, if there was actually like a neutral or unbiased expansion of what would be allowed, then why are all of the examples of things that are now allowed stuff right-wingers would say? Like, where are the examples like, oh, now left-leaning people who were previously engaging in hate speech and getting banned for it are now allowed to say these things? Nope. It's pretty obvious who this is being done for, but I don't need to argue that. Everyone on the right knows who this is being done for. They know they're racist, obviously. Criticism of Israel? Oh, buddy, trust me, they're not going to lighten up on banning people who are critical of Israel, okay? They're going to be much harder on that, if anything. She sees the shifts announced by Kaplan, a former White House deputy chief of staff under George W. Bush and Zuckerberg's longtime liaison to the American right, as, quote, the open political capture of Facebook, particularly because changes are pandering to a particular party. Meta's public community standards page says that even under the new relaxed rules, the company still protects, quote, refugees, migrants, immigrants, and asylum seekers from the most severe attacks, and prohibits, quote, direct attacks against people on the basis of, quote, race, ethnicity, national origin, disability, religious affiliation, caste, sexual orientation, sex, gender identity, and serious disease. But I get, you can say like mental illness, whatever the fuck, and that's fine, I guess. Like this, they're just lying, basically. But the instructive examples provided in the internal materials show a wide variety of comments denigrating people based on the traits that are marked allow. At times, the provided examples appear convoluted or contradictory. One page notes, quote, generalizations about any group remain prohibited if they make a comparison to animals or pathogens, such as all Syrian refugees are rodents. But comparisons to, quote, filth or feces are now downgraded from hate speech to a less serious form of insult. What? How does that make any sense? You can say blank group are rats is bannable, but blank group are shit isn't? Total arbitrary nonsense. Which violates company rules only if directed at a protected group. According to examples provided by Meta, this change now allows users to broadly dehumanize immigrants with statements like, I don't want to say this shit, man, despite language elsewhere in the document that claims comparisons to subhumanity remain banned. The company's policy around nausea-based hate follows a particularly fine line. Quote, migrants are no better than vomit is allowed, according to the material, while, quote, Muslims make me want to throw up, ought to be removed because it claims a group causes sickness. What does this mean? The point of these deliberately vague, contradictory, meaningless lines is that they are warbly and inconsistent enough that you can always just ban the people that you want to. That's the point. Like, this is always how you enforce like bias and bigotry in a system. You don't create rules that specifically say blank group of people are allowed and other group of people aren't, because those are too obviously partisan and they invite like discourse. Instead, you just have like a blurry fucking mess of inconsistent rules, and you just apply them as you see fit. While general comparisons to animals are still against the rules, many other kinds of broad, hateful stereotyping are now allowed. All behavioral statements, qualified and non-qualified, are now no longer against Meta's rules, the document reads, allowing sweeping generalizations connecting entire races or ethnic groups to criminality or terrorism. The document offers as examples of acceptable racial generalizations: these damn immigrants can't be trusted, they're all criminals. I bet George is the one who stole my backpack after track practice today. Immigrants are all thieves, and Japanese are all Yakuza. Yeah, that's I like how they threw this one in as a balancing at the end here. Like, these are equal statements. Like, yeah, anti-immigrant bias in the United States, generalizing them all as criminals. That's like, okay, yeah, sure. That's like saying all Japanese are Yakuza, It just happens all the time, but you shouldn't do it, It notes, however, that the statement, quote, black people are all drug dealers remains prohibited under the new rules. Okay, genuine question. Literally how? How is these damn immigrants can't be trusted, they're all criminals, and black people are all drug dealers meaningfully distinct in a terms of service sense? It makes no sense. Again, the deliberate ambiguity being carved out as a way to permit just selective enforcement of the rules. Other sections of the materials provide examples of forbidden, quote, insults about sexual immorality, such as, quote, Jewish women are slutty. But the document also provides ample examples of newly permissible insults aimed at specific gender identities or sexual orientations, including, quote, gay people are sinners and trans people are immoral. A post stating lesbians are so stupid would remain prohibited as a mental insult, though trans people are mentally ill is marked as allowed. Generalizations about superiority and inferiority are similarly convoluted, though attacks on immigrants tend to get a pass. Examples of banned content include Christian men are totally useless, is it me or are all autistic women ugly, and Hispanics are as dirty as the ground we walk on. Meanwhile, Mexican immigrants are trash is now deemed acceptable. Okay. Overall, the restrictions on claims of ethnicity or religious supremacy has been eased significantly. The document explains that Meta now allows, quote, statements of superiority as long as the statements do not refer to inferiority of another protected characteristic group, A, on the basis of inherent intellectual ability, and B, without support. Without support? Literally, in the rules, you can't be racist unless you cite a source. Allowable statements under this rule include Latinos are the best and black people are superior to all others. Okay, so at least the hoteps will still be feasting. Also now acceptable are comparative claims such as black people are more violent than whites, Mexicans are lazier than Asians, and Jews are flat out greedier than Christians. Off limits only because it pertains to intellectual ability is the example white people are more intelligent than black people. I don't think they're going to be enforcing that one. Something tells me, I gotta say, something tells me they're not going to be enforcing this one right here on Facebook and Instagram, the everything apps. But general statements about intellect appear to be permitted if they're shared with purported evidence. Okay, so there we go, yeah. So you can't say white people are more intelligent than black people. You have to say white people are more intelligent than black people according to the bell curve. For example, quote, I just read a statistical study about Jewish people being smarter than Christians. From what I can tell, it's true. It's unclear if one would be required to link to such a study or merely claim its existence. Literally, like in the rules, racists must now cite their sources. Okay, we're like trying to create a higher standard for discourse here, okay? Listen, if we're going to have a race war, let it at least be a well-informed one. Rules around explicit statements of hate have been loosened considerably as well. Statements of contempt, dislike, and dismissal, such as I hate, I don't care for, and I don't like, are now considered non-violating and are allowed, the document explains. Remember that all of this is being done in the name of free speech, discourse, debate, and we should be able to talk about what people in Congress talk about. Even with how bad things are right now, is this something that you hear in Congress? Like people in Congress are just going up and saying, I hate X racial group? Not really, no. This is just loosening hate speech. Yes? Okay, well, the funny answer is yes, but the real answer is no. You have to wait till 2026 for that one. Included as acceptable examples are posts stating, quote, I don't care for white people. That's how people tend to say that. And, quote, I'm a proud racist. The new rules also forbid targeted cursing at a protected group, which includes the use of the word f*** and its variants. Cited as an example, a post stating, the f***ing Jews are at it again, violates the rules simply because it contains an obscenity. The new rules permit the use of bitch or motherfucker. You can say motherfucker, but not fuck. The problem with this statement is the potty mouth? What? Another policy shift, referring to the target as genitalia or anus, are now considered non-violating and are allowed. As an example of what is now permissible, Facebook offers up, quote, Italians are dickheads. Okay. At least there's some good coming from this. While many of the examples and underlying policies seem muddled, the document shows clarity around disparaging remarks about transgender people, including children. True, I read the TOS. This is like the most clarity you get. Like, this is the one section for which the TOS is like, yeah, drawing a line right here, you can do whatever you want. Noting that, quote, is no longer a designated slur and is now considered non-violating. That's great, man. The materials provide three. I love this too, because literally everywhere, everyone accepts this as a slur. This isn't like an ambiguous line or anything. This isn't like discourse on whether or not trans people are mentally ill. Straightforwardly, this is treated as a slur by all groups, including people on the right. They talk like it's a slur. Everyone knows it's a slur. The materials provide 3 examples of speech that should no longer be removed. Quote, "Are a problem, look at that beneath photo of 17-year-old girl." That's great. And get these out of my school beneath photos of high school students. Just explicitly, just right in there in the training notes. Here's what we're allowing now. After the publication of this article, Meta spokesperson Andy Stone informed The Intercept that the company had made an error in one of the examples in its informational material. Oh? Stone said Meta intended to illustrate content that would not be allowed when it included the example, look at that beneath photo of 17-year-old girl. Oh, sorry, now that you've leaked our internal documents, the big green check mark we had next to calling a 17-year-old girl a slur, that was actually meant to be a red X. My apologies. Nice save. And that's it. That's the end of the article. This is where we are right now. Like, what am I supposed to say, you know? Who wrote this TOS? Zuckerberg himself, probably ChatGPT, knowing these people. I mean, look, we can get to like the I don't know, material analysis here, okay? For all the liberals, I guess, I don't know. Remember when Zuckerberg was just like the cool politically neutral tech guy? This is what all wealth like consolidates into, okay? You have to get at the underlying issue here. It's not that magically every single oligarch, tech baron, whatever else was secretly ultra right-wing the entire time, and this is just their... Like, you couldn't fix this by replacing them with good tech billionaires, okay? They will all shift this way. And it doesn't even have anything to do with their personality, really. It's just the nature of capital, which follows where it consolidates and which falls in line when necessary to protect its interests. It's that simple, okay? Like, democracy and capitalism are just fundamentally incompatible. Look at how rapidly civil rights are being eroded. Do you remember what happened in the Weimar Republic? How many times do the same mistakes have to be made over and over and over again? You know, every time countries fall to fascism, it follows the same pattern. How many countries have you seen where a right-wing dictator grew to prominence, where all of the, like, previously politically neutral capitalists, all of the business leaders, the magnates, the oligarchs, stood together and fought against fascism? Go ahead, find your examples. It's not happening, man. Letting people have this much power is just having powder kegs set under the ground. You're just waiting for somebody to walk by with a match. And now we got this. The only things that I can really hope for, given how quickly things are getting worse, much worse, is that in a world that is shifting, that has shifted towards global commerce and global communication, that it becomes increasingly difficult for any one nation's dictator to really stamp out progressivism. Like, if you take a look at even in countries like Russia, which has never like known democracy, not really, and has never really known progressivism as like a real meaningful contemporary political force, there are still like a ton of gay and trans people in Russia. They just keep quiet and don't have much political power. In Hungary, despite the country being like ruled by Orban with an iron fist for, you know, well over a decade at this point, he still hasn't meaningfully crushed resistance because it's just really difficult to get away with it. It's just difficult to do now. People have higher standards for compassion for other people in the developed world. Obviously not for Palestinians, but, you know. Not to mention the fact that, like, no matter what, no matter how much political power they may have or how much money they may have, they're still waging an uphill battle against reality, right? Like, humans crave freedom, compassion, equality. These are like innate drives. We've always fought for them no matter how high the walls are. You got to climb over to get there. It's like the pressure towards those ends continues, you know? People want to be happy. None of that matters. Capital is far more powerful than the human spirit. Nah. If that was the case, how do we get to this point? Don't be silly. We never would have made any progress. All the power has always been held in their camp, and somehow progress continues to be made. The Brazilian government might take Meta to court over this. I mean, we'll see. But, like, I don't know if Lula has enough of a mandate to, like, win a war against international capital, you know? We'll see. It's not even Lula, it's our Supreme Court. Yeah, but, like, pressure from America's government will be directed towards Lula, not towards the Supreme Court necessarily.